Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. Check out that storm. Something wicked this way comes. Speaking of which, it's time that we had a little bit of a discussion about the church during the modern pandemic. Catholic Church in particular. The Eastern Orthodox, the Coptics, and stuff like that all have their own little controversies. But here in the Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic nations, the Catholic Church tends to have more say. The Protestant Church definitely has more adherents, but the Catholics by far outnumber them, and they're unified under a single leader. Throughout the past 2,000 years, the church has been a pretty powerful force in moving and shaping events in the world. There were times they were able to force monarchies to come together. They were able to force people to make peace. They were able to force people to make war. The Pope has had a heck of a lot of power at his fingertips. Even the popes that didn't want to do too much, like Pope Gregory, who decided to turn the Vatican into his personal penthouse, they still had enormous power at their beck and call. At other times, the papacy has been largely irrelevant. We're in one of those strange periods where the Catholic Church still has relevance, while the Pope himself doesn't have the raw diplomatic power that he had in the past. And please note, as far as I know, the Pope will always be a he. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it smart, it's just the way it is. Now, the church is a pretty militaristic organization. I say that not in meaning that they call out the bishops every Monday and go through drills and stuff like that. No. But the church is able to basically say, hey, Padre, your services are slipping in this particular aspect. You need to get your act on course. They do visits, they do inspections, they make sure the holy water isn't coming from the local well, and the holy wine, the blood of Christ, and the holy biscuit, the body of Christ, is not being outsourced to some third-party vendor. The church is kind of like Gordon Ramsay. They have standards that must be adhered to. And if you don't adhere to them, there's a chance you could be defrocked. Defrocking is a rather interesting institution. I was actually quite friendly with a defrocked priest who passed away recently. And he was defrocked because he disagreed with his superiors on certain minor matters. And basically put, he took a progressive stance where they wanted to be conservative. And since this time, the church has readopted that same progressive stance. Defrocking, though, is basically like that scene you see in classical movies where they take all your medals off and demote you to the ranks. And the person I knew was still able to perform marriages because he quite frankly enjoyed that, but whereas he didn't really enjoy the services and stuff like that. So the church still has enormous power over its adherents. So it's quite surprising to hear the Pope talk about how they can't even get all the cardinals to get vaccinated. You would think it would be a relatively simple matter for the church, which, let's be honest, the church has a very specific curriculum of what they want you to learn and what they want you to do. It isn't a university in itself, but it is an institution of higher learning. And people who go for ecumenical degrees and, choose to specialize in that do just as much studying as any doctor at any other university. A doctorate in divinity is no easy task. But at the same token, they make sure to get their values across. And even though their values change over time, the people are allowed some degree of individual expression. Now, what makes this interesting is the Pope is coming out lately and telling a lot of people that there's nothing in church law against vaccines. As a matter of fact, the current Pope is reminding everybody that the church has never had a problem with the polio vaccine, the smallpox vaccine, etc. But he also admits that even in Vatican City, now remember, Vatican City is only a couple square miles. It's really a couple buildings. And that's where the Pope has absolute control. And even where the Pope has absolute control of the law, absolute control of religion, and absolute control of your social status, even where the Pope controls all three of those, he cannot convince everybody to get vaccinated. Despite the fact he won't because it'll be a scandal, but he could walk up to one of the cardinals and say, you, be vaccinated by tomorrow or you're no longer a cardinal. He won't do it. Do you know why? Because of politics. A pope can also be removed. Oh, there's a precedent for that. There's many precedents. Emperors would show up with armies and do it. Their fellow popes, their fellow cardinals would do it. The Pope is basically the first among equals rather than an official, figurehead of the church. And because of that, he has to always watch what he's doing. This indicates that there is a powerful anti-vaccine sentiment within the church. Now, Vatican City, again, he says most are vaccinated. Whether that's 80%, 90%, doesn't matter. So most people are following his objectives. But are we seeing a weakening of the papacy because of the pandemic? That would have been unthinkable even a few years ago. I'm not going to pile on the papacy here and all its various past problems because we know over 2,000 years humanity has been stupid worldwide. Whether you're English, whether you're South African, whether you're Persian, Chinese, you got skeletons in your closet somewhere. Nobody's hands are clean in the entire world. And the Pope is no different. Again, 2,000 years, some good popes, some bad popes, some in between. Stuff is going to happen. But the trick becomes, why has the Pope not used his executive power? Because he's, quite frankly, not sure if he can win. If he thought he could do it, the papal bull would be issued tomorrow. It would be written out, read before everybody, and everybody would have to get vaccinated. But instead, they're still arguing in their councils about whether they should or should not do it. And individual bishops are basically practicing their own interpretation in their own diocese. Even though the big man himself has given his blessing, quite literally, the general population of the church, I'm saying general as in anybody who has something to do with the administration and day-to-day workings of the church, which goes beyond priests and everything else, because someone's got to get everybody fed. Someone's got to make sure the sacramental wine goes out. Someone's got to make sure the Bibles are printed properly. Someone's got to make sure that, in Vatican City, the trash gets picked up. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. Just your local church has a huge amount of organization behind it. You got to get your collection organized. You got to get your dues organized. You got to pay the priest something, because unfortunately in 2021, nothing comes for free, not even a priest. And the priest, whether he's Catholic and has to remain celibate, although that is changing, or he just simply wants an apartment to live, because, let's be honest, nobody really wants to live where they work. You need somewhere to go. It's a lot of administration work, and unless you have an extremely talented person, That means you're employing at least one volunteer to do all those things. And that volunteer has the blessing of the community and the local priest. So for every priest you see, there's at least one person behind them, if not more. What kind of statistics are we talking about? Vatican City, okay, I understand most people there are vaccinated. You're going to find in Toronto, most people are vaccinated. New York, most people are vaccinated. Los Angeles, most people are vaccinated. Mexico City. The big cities have a pretty good vaccination program. Pretty much everyone who has been vaccinated has been vaccinated. And there's that 10% that are sitting there on the outlier that are saying, we are not going to do it. Probably more in this case. I'm going to go as high as 20 or 30%. Don't have an exact number. But it's those people who are not getting vaccinated. And the question is, why are they so determined not to get vaccinated? You ask them, they all have different reasons, but they all have considerable reasons that are worth listening to. Now, I am not a vaccine negationist. Silverlight has always said, I am a free will person. I believe you should have the choice what you put in your body. And if you choose not to get vaccinated, I am cool with that. If you choose to get vaccinated, I am cool with that. I'm not one of these conspiracy people that is telling, oh, that's the mark of the devil. Because the Pope himself has said vaccines are fine and moral. What you hold true on earth, I will hold true in heaven, as the Bible says. But we have an interesting schism going on in the Catholic Church, one that reflects on the population at whole. And it kind of shows the point I've been building to. Even in a highly authoritarian structure like the Catholic Church, it's simply not possible to make everybody do what you want. There's always going to be some disobedience. Now, how well you quell it, that's another story. I covered that yesterday. But as it is, vaccines are going to be controversial. And I think this is the backlash. We've been seeing it for a while with the studies where vaccines cause autism, which, yeah, those studies have all been disproven. There is some link, some very tenuous link to some negative side effects in vaccines. At the same token, people do have some pretty bad reactions to vaccines. That's why not supposedly, I happen to know this because I was around somebody getting vaccinated, and they wait 15 minutes to make sure you're okay. So obviously there is something that they worry about. I, Silverlight, can't have the smallpox vaccine because I'm allergic to it. And I find it interesting that they could figure that out back 40 years ago. Let's leave it at that. And here we are in 2021, and we can't figure out what part of the vaccine is making people allergic. So you can do a quick fingertip blood test and see, yes, you're allergic, no, you're not allergic. Hit them with the vaccine and let them go. It doesn't make sense to me. So people who say they are allergic, and if you are an anti-vaxxer, I suggest that you simply say that. You're right. You're a good person. You have all the information in the world. And problem is you're not convincing anybody. The same is true with vaccine people. We're past the point of convincing. We've been over this argument for a year now, since the vaccines became available. So rather than bullheadedly charge at each other, let's take a look at the Pope again. He is just diplomatically saying, I want you to get vaccinated, but it's also your choice. And that's really the attitude that we should adopt from this. When a powerful edifice like the Catholic Church has to still say, your body, your choice, which is a surprising reversal for them, we should be doing it too. There's some good evidence out there saying this vaccine might be bad. And I've read it, and I've paid attention to it. But the same token, once you have the vaccine in your system, it's not like you can take it out. So these fights that I'm seeing online, this quote debate, end quote, which is just people throwing facts at each other, it's quite frankly tiring. Let's take a page out of the Catholic playbook and just simply say, you know what? We agree to disagree. Your body, your choice. And you know what? If the anti-vaxxers are right, then they're right. They're going to be laughing while the rest of us are trying to get some class action lawsuit going up. And if they're wrong and they get infected, they're sick people. We need to look after them. I've seen some people say, oh, if you don't get the vaccine, we shouldn't look after you. That is some draconian crap. No. We're a society. We are civilized. We look after everybody equally. Remember that. We have to be compassionate. As much as we are the gray men, as much as we are in this to survive, as much as we are in this to prosper, we can't forget to be respectful, and we can't forget to allow other people to make their own decisions. The wind is not choosing to move. Sorry, the tree is not choosing to move, but the wind is forcing it to do so. And nobody wants to be the tree. Everybody wants to be the wind. But the good news is I'm going to have some firewood in a little bit, because I'd better go out and start collecting. Anyways, if you enjoyed this episode, please hit like, share, subscribe, buy the merchandise, which are the books advertised in the link down below, and we hope you have a fantastic day.